my beautiful friends. It's Amanda here, and today I'm finally working on this video idea that has been percolating for a while. Almost a year ago, ColourPop released their Pokemon collection, and that inspired me to want to create an Eevee palette, specifically a build your own palette inspired by all of the evolutions, the evolutions, if you will. So, my plan is to design an 18 pan eyeshadow palette with 9 standalone ish duos, each inspired by a different Eevee form, but that also still works as a cohesive, useful, well rounded, makes sense 18 pan palette. So that's exactly what we're going to do today. The first thing we need is an empty palette. So I have this magnetic palette I got from Amazon ages ago, and I love this one because it perfectly fits 18 standard eyeshadow pans and it has a mirror. I know we're not here to talk about this magnetic palette, but I have a couple of these and I use them so much, especially for building palettes for travel. So I'm going to be pulling shadows from all over my collection. You're going to see single shadows from ColourPop, Terra Moons, Sydney Grace, and Fantasy Cosmetica in this palette. So let's get to the fun part and start picking some eyeshadows. We have to start with the OG Eevee. Technically, Eevee is a starter in Let's Go Eevee and a couple of other games. And now Eevee is going to be our starter today for this palette. For each of the Eeveelutions, I'm going to choose one matte and one shimmer that would work together as a super easy two shadow look. Even though this duo needs to be quite neutral, I still wanted to give a little bit of a special edge, so I chose this incredible sparkly Terra Moons shade called Meteorite to complement the warm caramel tones in this soft brown matte shade, very aptly named Toffee from Sydney Grace. I also like that these two shades in particular will work well with pretty much any other duo in the palette. I think that's important for this palette design. Next, we have Jolteon. Jolteon is the electric type evolution, and the two Jolteon inspired shades are basically golden yellow versions of the OG Eevee shadows that I chose for the first duo. So the flow is there, the cohesion is working for me. My Jolteon duo consists of the shade Lightspeed from Terra Moons and Geese Allaying from Sydney Grace. Especially for this duo and the Flareon duo that we're going to look at next, I really wanted to have that supercharged type of shimmer to give the electric and fire type spark. So these Terra Moons shifty shimmer shadows are exactly what we need. For Flareon, obviously, this is our fire type. I selected this incredible orange gold shifting shimmer from Terra Moons. It's called Galactic Blossom. It is so pretty. And that is paired with a really hot orange, almost neon orange from ColourPop. This shadow is from ages ago. It's called 000, which, by the way, stands for out of office, just in case you didn't know. I didn't know what that abbreviation was when this shadow first came out, so maybe I'm just out of the loop. But, there's probably somebody else out there who wasn't aware. So don't worry, you're not alone. I got your back. Oh, it means out of office. That is our Flareon duo. Now, let's switch gears from the super warm toasty shades on the top row and talk about the cutest little fairy type, Sylveon. Sylveon is one of my personal favorites. I went fully pink for my interpretation, but I chose the Terra Moons shade Andromeda specifically because it does have more of a light pastel, almost white base. So we still get some of the contrast that we see in the Sylveon character. Andromeda paired with the matte pink shade Worth It makes a really soft, pretty duo with definite soft, pretty Sylveon vibes. I keep wanting to refer to these Eevees as she or her, but fun fact, did you know that most Eevees and Eeveelutions are actually male? Eevee is just really heavily marketed as quote unquote girl stuff on the licensed merch, all the official Pokemon items. They really push Eevee as the girl option, the girly option. But in the actual context of the games, the vast majority of Eevees are males. Literally, it's a 7-to-1 ratio, seven males to every one female Eevee according to my internet sleuthing anyway. So I do have a tendency to refer to Eevee as she, her, but it's actually most likely that any given Eevee character is actually male. I am just full of fun facts, right? Look, I'm living up to my Pokemon status over here, okay? Let's move on to my personal favorite duo in this palette. This is also probably the duo that I took the most creative liberties with. I went really monochrome with Leafeon's shadows, just like I did with Sylveon's. I decided to lean into the green despite the fact that Leafeon actually does have lots of yellow on its body in the character depiction. But I feel satisfied with this choice. It was my only real opportunity to add green into this palette. And this Leafeon duo can be paired with the yellows from the Jolteon duo that's just above it in the palette placement to create a beautiful little yellow and green quad that I think really gives us that full on Leafeon experience. I don't want to miss the forest for the trees with this palette. I I didn't even mean to make a leaf joke there, but I think you see what I did. Basically, I don't want to focus so much on being literal with the duos that I sacrifice the bigger picture of an actually cohesive, useful palette altogether. Hopefully that made sense. Of course, we had to add some purples for the Espeon duo. This is the one duo where I kind of broke from the one matte, one shimmer formula only a little bit because the Starcatcher shade is a very glittery sequin matte finish. Once it's applied, though, and especially when you see it contrasted with the super shimmery Helix Nebula shadow, Starcatcher does really look and perform like a matte shade, so I think it pretty much still counts. It's no surprise to anyone, I'm sure, but this is another one of my most loved duos in this palette. Green and purple are my top favorite eyeshadow colors to wear, so of course, the Espeon and Leafeon shadow duos really do have my heart. They are the heart of this palette to me. They definitely have a little bit of a Flora story type of vibe, so makes perfect sense. With that said, why not quickly pivot to my least favorite duo in the palette? Okay, I'm still working on learning to love blues, but I'm getting there. We did have to go full on blue for Vaporeon. It's the water type, and I really didn't feel like I had the exact right tones for this particular character because Vaporeon does have slightly more neutrally undertones and the blue singles that I have in my collection, which I'll admit I don't have a huge selection of blues, but the blue single shadows that I do have are definitely more of these icy, cool toned blues. However, these two shadows that I selected still give us that light to dark contrast that Vaporeon calls for. The matte shade Moonlight and then this more satiny shimmer shade called Andromeda really have that light and dark push and pull that the colors in the Vaporeon character have. So even though the tones aren't exactly right on, I think that, the vibe is still there. And that's not nothing. Maybe it's just because they are more green adjacent, but I do prefer these turquoise type blues over the more icy powder blue tones that I chose for Vaporeon. I went more turquoise for Glaceon. I know it's kind of ironic to be less icy for an ice type, but let's just choose to ignore that for now. These are the type of blue shades that I'm more drawn to. Another super old ColourPop shade from my archives is this matte turquoise called Formation. They actually still make this one. So many of my ColourPop singles have been discontinued, but I'm happy to report you can still find Formation if you're in the market for some singles. I love the way this Formation shade pairs with Moontide. It's the kind of combo that makes me want to wear blue, and that is truly saying something. Last but not least, we have our dark type Umbreon. I do find it very satisfying to bookend this palette with staple neutrals for the first and last duos. I toyed with the idea of referencing some of the more colorful little details of Umbreon, the gold markings, the reddish eyes, but I do think that ultimately going for this silver and black color story does justice to the individual character, but it also really serves this palette as a whole. And I was always trying to keep that in mind while I was picking my shades. So I chose On a Whimsy and Let's Do It from ColourPop. Honestly, any excuse for a silver. The OG Eevee and the Umbreon shades definitely can be combined with any of the other duos to round out an eye look. Side note, sorry that this swatch footage for this one is so blurry. I don't know why I could not focus on these shades. That was user error, so I'm sorry. I know that can be kind of irritating to watch, but we all have those days, right? We all have those moments. With the Umbreon duo added, our palette is complete. I am so pleased with how this turned out. This 100% feels true to the inspiration, and it also checks all the boxes for me to be a useful and well-rounded, pleasing to look at palette. I like the way the color story flows with some neutrals and some softer colors to balance out those brighter and bolder shades. Whenever I'm designing a palette, I want to create that balance with shades, with a variety of depth, some light, some midtones, some deep shades, and also a nice mix of finishes. I personally love a 50-50 matte to shimmer split. So this Eevee palette just really came together in a way that I find inspiring and also very pleasing to my eye both in the pans and especially in these swatches. I think the shadows flow so beautifully together. I honestly just really enjoy this. I never would have built this palette without the evolution inspiration, but I'm glad I did. I always like to stretch myself and just give myself a fun little creative challenge to get out of the box. Let me know if you want to see any eye looks with this palette. Maybe we could do like a palette bingo style to mix it up even further. Or maybe just building the palette is more interesting and the eye look wouldn't really add anything to your Eevee experience. Either way, let me know what you think about how this palette turned out. Which evolution inspired duo is your favorite? What should I use as inspiration for my next build your own palette video? I always love to hear what you think about things too. So make sure you leave all your thoughts in the comments down below. As always, thank you so much for watching. I really appreciate you being here, and I just love your face, and I hope that you have a wonderful day, and I will see you real soon in my next video. Okay, bye!